I am so out of practice. It's not even funny. Let me see if I remember how to craft. I haven't done it in so long. Okay, so I want to do some cards today, and I'm going to use some of the background papers. I'm going to add some solid cardstock to it in gold color. Background cardstock is white. And I picked two colors, solid colors that are navy and pink. So it's a very light pink. Now I just added, matched those three solids to the color of the collection. So I don't know if you can see the pink very well because of the light, but yeah, it's pink. What else we have here in our tray? So I have some dies. So I'll be using some floral dies, some leaves dies. The gold ones are Anna Griffin dies. These are my go-to. So these are for my dies, and I have one more die that I'm going to use for sentiments. You don't have to do that part if you don't have it, but I'm going to do some sentiments using my glimmer, and they're going to be gold foiled. If you don't have it, just use any sentiment that you have. So let's have some crystals. Yeah, these are. Where's my camera? I know Streamia doesn't do regular orientation anymore, so it's weird how it's coming out. Okay, so some crystals, and I have a gold marker. I'm going to use that. So whenever I'm making a whole bunch of cards, I prepare the parts of the cards all together in an assembly line. I start with the base. I take sheets of 5.5 by 8.5. I score it at the center at 4.25. I fold it, and then I burnish the center. And this is my card. That's an A2 size card, and you're going to need 12 of them. Then I take the solid cardstock. I have two sheets, one in pink and one in navy blue, that I'm going to cut to get 12 pieces of 4 inches by 5.25. So I start by cutting strips of 4 inches by 12, and then I'll take those strips and cut it at 5.25. This way I get 6 pink and 6 blue ones. They will fit right on top of the cover, leaving a nice frame around with like a white frame around the solid color cardstock. So that will be my background for my cards. Then I go to the pattern papers, and I have 6 sheets of 6 by 8 pattern paper that I will cut to get 12 pieces. And again, I'm deducting another 1/4 inch from the size. I have 2 sheets here that have elements on it that I'm going to fussy cut and use those to decorate my cards with. So I like those elements that I have 2 sheets, and enough, but I also use additional ones from another sheet that I had. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the pattern paper to get 12 pieces of 3.75 by 5. Again, I deducted a 1/4 inch from the edge, and then I'm going to remove the center of each of these pieces to create sort of like a frame. So to cut the frame out, I need to put the piece of paper that I just have, and the frame will be about 1/2 inch on either side, and then I'll cut it out. So I use my paper trimmer, and I don't cut it, of course, all the way. I just start at the center and I go about 1/2 inch from the edge. If you don't have a trimmer that can do that, you can use a blade with a ruler and it'll do exactly the same job. So now I'm taking this piece out and I get a frame. And the piece that I just took out, I'm going to use that for the floral dies. With the dies, I'm going to cut out some petals. I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the rest of the pattern papers. So the last bit of preparation that you want to do is create your sentiments. I like to make strips, and in this particular case I use my glimmer machine and and some glimmer dies to create some sentiments like happy birthday, get well soon. I think I made about 7 or 8 different ones. I made it over white cardstock and then I glued it over the gold foil paper, so it was a little sturdier and a little wider. Okay, I finished cutting out all of my pieces and I'm going to use the centers that I took out when I cut the frame and all of the rest of my pattern paper that I have left over, and use my die cuts to cut out some florals. So I need 3 different sizes for the flowers. And I want to say, if you don't have dies that are flowers, you can use the download sheet that I gave you and cut out the florals by hand. Don't have to make complicated flowers, just follow the tracing line, and you need about 5 petals or 6 petals, that's fine, but try to do them in 3 different sizes. Okay, you're going to need 1 flower for each card. That means 12 petals from each size. That's a total of 30. Plus, if you make in a box, cut another 11. Sorry, we're going to do 12 cards, so it's 12 from each one. Right, that's 36 total. If you're doing a box, you want to do 3 flowers for your box, so add 3 more. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and prepare all the flowers. Like I said, I needed about between 12 and 15 flowers. Each one has 3 petals. The first thing that I do is usually sort them out to make sure that I have them all in color blocking and that I have enough of what I need. So I just sort them out and prepare the batches of flowers that I want. To make a 3-dimensional flower, I take a sponge so that when I press against the paper, it'll have a soft side on the other side to create a dent in the paper. I take my embossing tool, it has a little ball at the end, and I press against the paper. First, I press against the edges of the petals to curl them up to one side, and then I will turn it around. So you can see how the petals here start to turn. And because it's heavy cardstock, the shape will remain. You know, when you press against the paper, it breaks the fiber and you can mold and shape that flower. Now I'm going into the center. I'm pressing in the center. It'll bring the petals up. So you can see how it gets sort of like a bowl kind of shape, sort of rounded. I will do that to all of the pieces of die cuts that I cut, and I will keep them in groups together, and then I will just glue them at the center. You can use different size embossing tools Just make sure that if you're using a smaller one, don't press too hard because it can definitely rip that paper as well. If you find that it's hard to press against it or it doesn't really keep its shape, you can always take a little bit of a spray bottle with water and spray those petals. That will also get absorbed in the fibers of the paper, will expand it, and then it'll be easier for you to mold and shape that paper. The only thing is you're gonna have to let it dry a little bit before you glue it and apply it to your card. It doesn't take long, but make sure that your paper is dry before you do that. So after you glued all the petals together and you have 3 layers on the flower, you can just take your embossing tool again, put it against the sponge and press the center one more time, just to give it another. If you press against the center a little bit, it'll curl up a little bit more. So here we go, just put it down and press it, and it'll bring everything back up. We're now going back to those 2 sheets of paper that I have the elements on. You can go ahead and start cutting out the elements that you want to use in your cards. I have again instruction sheet on how to fussy cut elements the right way. I will put the link on there for you. You can just follow that for some good tips on how to fussy cut the elements. You can cut them one at a time as you make your cards, or you can do what I do and I just go and cut a whole bunch of elements all at once. Okay, so I fast forwarded my video a little bit. You don't really want to sit here for half hour watch me die cut florals and petals, but you can see now I cut some leaves from white cardstock, and on top of the video there you can see my floral cut and my gold petals cut, the ones that I cut from the large die. I used sort of like a muted gold color cardstock. It goes really nice with everything. So now that my elements are cut, I want to leave you with one more advice before we assemble the cards. To remind you that you can hand emboss all of your die cut pieces. Here I'm showing you how you can emboss the leaves. You know, by using your embossing tool over the sponge, you can actually paint the leaves inside to give it a little more detail. You see over there? All of those details you can add. It just gives it a nice, just one more touch there to make it a little bit more detail over there. So you can press down on the right side and then those details will show how they're sunk in. Alternately, you can take the leaves, you can turn it over, and you can emboss it on the other side, and it will show raised. So here I'm turning it over to the other side, doing the same thing on the other side, and then it'll show that it's raised. Okay, we have all of our pieces all ready. Go ahead and arrange them in front of you. You can do batches, and now we can go ahead and assemble some cards. You want to start with a solid color and put it over your white color base. You're going to put it on the front. Decide if you want the card to open from right to left, left to right, or if you want it opening towards the top. Either way, your solid color is going to be put on the front of the card, and you want to leave a white frame around it that is even. So if you cut the paper according to the size I gave you, you should have about 1/8 of an inch frame around. Then take the frame that you cut the window out of it and make sure that the edges of the paper are covered. I'm using Prismacolor metallic gold marker. It's a wide tip, and I'm using the tip of the marker to paint the edges of the paper, and that will hide the white core. You want to hold it taut so that the tip of the marker is going to go smooth and it's not going to go over to the front. If it's hard for you, you can use something hard to lay the paper on top. But I do recommend to try it over some, do a test before that and practice. You don't want to start right away your first time on the paper that you cut in case you don't have enough. So just take some remnants of paper and do some practice run. Here I will show you how I'm putting it over some board. Okay, and make sure that it stays on the top of it with the edge a little bit out. That will hold it so it doesn't move, and you can use that to mark the edge. Again, you can use markers, you can use ink, with a dauber to ink the edges. A variety of things, a black marker. I would use permanent marker versus water marker, because water marker can bleed. So again, if you test it first, you'll be able to see how it will go through. All right, so glue this over. Again, you have a frame around it. And now you can just play with all the elements to decide where you want to place it. Put it on the left, put it on the right, and we're going to layer all the elements. So some will be in the front and some will be more in the back and hidden. So this is how you're building a composition right now. Okay. I would also recommend to keep it to one side of the card. Don't spread them around too much, because then it loses its effect. But if you layer it as a group or a cluster on one side, it is you'll get the effect you want. I am using squares, like foam squares that have 2 sticky sides on both sides on some of the elements to get them even higher than the base. So this is how you'll get like a 3-dimensional feel. After you decide what goes in the front, you can use those tapes to raise it from the rest. I also have smaller squares for the smaller areas. And these come in circles, they come in black or white, they come in strips. So it's a good product to have at home when you are a card maker. Oh, I forgot to take the other part out, and that's why it didn't stick. Now it will stick just fine. Press it down, and now it's stuck. Okay, now put the flower up. You want to put a considerable amount of glue at the tip of the flower, because you're only going to have glue there at the tip of it. The glue that I'm using is the art glitter glue, dries clear. So if you happen to get some glue that spilled over, it's not a big deal. You're not going to be able to see it. Okay, again, I'm doing some arrangement, putting more double-sided foam squares and making my arrangement. So the big elements will go down first, and then the smaller elements will get placed. I really wanted to cover that bottom part of my design piece there. I think it's a glass of wine, and I didn't like that tip of the glass sticking out, so I was trying to camouflage it with some leaves and some other things. But here I did a pretty good job at that. I'm adding some white leaves. You know, those are so delicate. I really like that dye. It cuts very nice. I don't remember, I think it's an off-brand actually, but there's so many different leaves and dyes for leaves out there from the different brands. And every time I see something that I like, I buy it. So I have a variety of different kinds of leaves. But these are really my go-to. I just cut a whole bunch together when I sit here and I don't have much to do. And sometimes you don't want to create anything start to finish. You just want to sit there and prepare materials. This is one of the things that I'll sit with my die cutting machine and some white cardstock, and I'll just cut a whole bunch of leaves and petals and have it on the side for if I want to make a card. I already have those ready. All right, I added my sentiment there. And as you can see, sometimes I put the sentiment on top, but most time I tend to put it on the bottom or at the center. I don't know why, but that's my, I guess, my aesthetic. Now I'm adding like a few dots of glue, and I am picking up there some flat back crystals. I'm putting them at the center of my flowers, at the two edges of my sentiment, and I'll add a cluster of 3 right there on top in a row. Now for the center of the flowers, like I said before, if you don't want to put crystals, I don't know if I said it before, but if you don't want to put crystals, you can add glitter or you can add something else, which is also very nice. Well, here's my card. In the 3-dimensional, give it a very, very nice look. So, card number 2, I'm going to use the pink color cardstock now. Do the same thing, put the glue all the way around the edges, and don't need too much. The art glitter glue is nice. If you don't use too much of it, it dries quickly and it will not make your paper wavy. You know. Again, take the marker, mark the edges, make sure everything is covered. If you went a little over, it's okay. And also don't forget the inside. You know, those little things are what will make a difference between like an elevated look. It's all of those little finishing touches. Okay, let's glue the frame down. Another tip that I can give you is you can also raise the frame from the paper. There are foam strips, if you would, and you can add a strip to the back of your frame to raise that from the card. I do that sometimes with my bigger cards though. My little ones, I don't want to add too much height to it. I think if we add a little bit, it's fine. But sometimes I do bigger cards like 5x7s or like slimline cards, then I will add more elements there and raise it a little more. Okay, here again, I'm creating my composition. I'm taking all my pieces and trying to figure out where I want to place it. And same as I did before, some of them I will glue directly on the paper. Some of them I will add foam squares and I will start building my composition. So this is basically the same thing that you're going to do to all 12 cards. Put your elements down, build your composition, add height, and put the pieces together in a way that pleases you. Sometimes you want to do it on the left. It might be that sometimes you want to do it on the right. There are no rules here. There is only one rule that I would suggest to stick to is keep them all on the same side, on the same cluster, and don't spread it too much. But this is where you just decorate and make your card, you know. Also, you want to make sure that you don't go over the edges. Your elements have to stay within the parameters of the card itself. Otherwise, if you want to put it in an envelope, it's not going to stay. And you don't want to hide your sentiment, because your sentiment is the center of attention. This is what you want to draw the attention to. Okay. So keep your elements to, different sizes. Make sure that you have one big one and the rest are medium or smaller. Put the leaves around, and have fun. Now that you made 12 cards, you might want to create a box to put them in. There is a tutorial for how to make a box. You can make simple boxes, doesn't have to be complicated, but it does keep everything nice and neat. And if you're giving it as a gift, it's a very nice way to give your gift to. So just create a regular, simple white box. Cut a strip that is about 1.5 inches, and the edges have to be 1 inch, so it will wrap around the top of the box. You can use your embossing tool to score some lines, and the scoring will create a design, embossed design in the paper itself. And then just decorate it. Just put a piece of scrap paper there, some cards, the same way that you decorated your card. Decorate the top of your box. Okay, here are the sides of it. You can put one in a diagonal, and the piece of pattern paper that I have put there is about 1 inch, 1 inch wide and about 4.5 inches long. Now I'm making a cluster of the flowers, and I would do either 1 or 3 flowers. I like to put flowers in 3s. On the card itself, because it's a smaller card, sometimes I put 3. In our cards, I put 1. But for the top of the box, I think 3 is a good number. I have some gold leaves there that I embossed and some white leaves. You see the same element, and just one little cutout elements I have there of a little cupcake, you can see. And yeah, it's fun. Just trying to figure out where I want that third one. I think I want the third one over there. That's a little flower. So I have a larger one, a medium size, and a small flower. Adding some white there. Okay, and that's it. That makes the box. All right, so that's the top of the box, and I'm just going to put some of the rhinestones in the center of the flowers. And I have to make sure not to touch it before it's completely dry. Okay. Yeah, just finishing touches. And here it is. That's the top of my box. So let's see how it looks when all the cards are placed inside. And you can also switch it around. Sometimes it'll be on the right, sometimes it will be on the left, so that it'll be spread evenly, because if you make all of the design on one side and they're all raised, it'll tilt to one side. So here are all the finished cards. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I do love making these cards, and I hope that you learned some new technique here and that you got great ideas. And to remember that I have the kit ready for you if you want to purchase it. I will have the link for you below, and let me know if you enjoyed the video tutorial. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.